Growing up, things were pretty standard in my family until my mom tragically passed away when I was just 10. A couple of years later, my dad remarried, hoping to bring some normalcy back into our lives, but that's when everything started to spiral. My dad and my new stepmom decided to adopt a girl around my age, named Sarah, which at first seemed like it might be a good thing. However, it quickly turned my world upside down. My dad, who was never the father of the year, shifted whatever affection he had from me to Sarah. It started with small things, like forgetting my school events but remembering hers. But it escalated to a whole new level of hurt the day he actually left me at a mall. Yes, a mall in another state. Luckily, he remembered and came back for me, but the damage was done. To make up for this massive blunder, he took me out on Sarah's birthday, thinking it would smooth things over. It didn't. Instead, it fueled a fiery rivalry between Sarah and me, making it clear that we were not going to be the sisters our parents hoped for. Sarah even had the nerve to tell me that she deserved our dad's love more than I did because she was adopted and needed more attention. Can you believe that? As if the mall incident wasn't enough, similar situations happened twice more. Each time my dad would realize his mistake, apologize profusely, and somehow it would end up making Sarah feel like the victim because it hurt her to see him apologize to me. It was like living in a twisted soap opera, where I was cast as the perpetual villain just for existing. Fast forward to college, I put physical and emotional distance between myself and my family, which seemed to finally wake my dad up to the reality of his neglect. He started trying to make amends, reaching out, attending events, and actually trying to be a father again. Things were looking up, or so I thought. 3 years of tentative reconciliation later, I was planning my wedding for December. It was supposed to be a beautiful closure to a year of rebuilding bridges. Dad was even going to give me away, a moment I'd imagined would solidify our patched-up relationship. But then, during a supposed casual lunch, which he turned into a family ambush by bringing Sarah and my stepmom unannounced, he dropped a bombshell. Sarah, who was suddenly getting married too, had set her date on the exact same day as mine. And here's the kicker. Dad had agreed to be at her wedding instead of mine. He actually had the audacity to ask me to move my wedding to the next year so he could accommodate Sarah's last-minute plans. When I pressed him, asking if he was really choosing her over me, he said yes without skipping a beat. I lost it. I told him not to bother coming to my wedding at all. I couldn't hold back and told Sarah exactly what I thought, that she was enjoying the attention of a dad whose daughter had always been an afterthought. I even threw in that her biological father had made the right decision by staying away, a low blow that I immediately regretted, but the words were already out. The fallout was nuclear. Dad tried to calm things down, but I was done. In the heat of the moment, I disinvited him from the wedding, told Sarah to enjoy her day without worrying about mine, and walked out. But here's where it gets even crazier. As the days passed, word got out about our public blow-up. Sympathy from family friends started pouring in. Not for Sarah, but for me. Several family friends who had watched me grow up sidelined began reaching out, offering support, even sharing their own observations of how unfairly I'd been treated over the years. Then came the revelation. One of Sarah's close friends confided in me that Sarah had been boasting about how she manipulated the situation to make sure our dad would choose her wedding over mine. It was all a game to her, one she felt she had won by securing our dad's undivided attention on what would have been my special day. Fueled by this new information and the community's support, I decided to confront Sarah and my dad one last time. This time, with the backing of not just my feelings, but the testimonies of those who had witnessed the years of neglect and manipulation. I laid it all out, the pain, the manipulation, the lies, and watched as the facade of the happy family crumbled for good. Dad was devastated by the revelations, finally seeing the extent of Sarah's manipulation and the pain it had caused. He tried to make amends, but for me, the damage was done. I was ready to move on, to focus on my wedding and the new chapter in my life without him. So here I am, a few months away from a wedding that will be smaller, but filled with people who truly support and love me. Sarah and my dad are trying to mend their own fractured relationship. But as for me, I'm looking forward to a future where I choose who is part of my life, based on genuine love and respect, not obligation or manipulation. So, am I the idiot? Edit. I booked my wedding date over a year ago. Now for the top comments before the update. What the actual hack is your dad doing? Not only did he completely dismiss your wedding, but he's also once again accommodating his stepdaughter over you. Not to mention, he also knew when your wedding date was also. Why did the step idiot choose your day? There are legit 364 other days. She could choose. I don't understand how your dad keeps falling for your stepsister's power play repeatedly. He really asked you to change your wedding day. That's insane. How convenient that out of all the days in the year, it just so happened that her wedding had to fall on the same date as yours. But just for spite, I booked the venue she wants just for it to sit empty on that day, so she can't use it. I am so sorry for you after reading your story. Your father is not worth your time or anything from you at all. He is stupid for putting her above you all the time. Hopefully you can have a wonderful wedding without him. I got the feeling that if Opie had moved her date somehow, stepsister would have had some issue that postponed her wedding. And the only alternative date would just happen to be Opie's new date. Honey, I can't imagine that the only date the stepdaughter could have picked had to be the one day you picked for your wedding. It sounds like it's going to block your father if he chooses his stepdaughter after this. I'm so sorry that your mom died. I'm a mom, and I'm sending you virtual hugs. I hope your future in-laws will take you in and love you like you deserve. Of course, you are not the idea. Update. The whole showdown with my dad and Sarah was draining, like running a marathon that you didn't train for. It was emotionally exhausting, but also strangely liberating. For years, I'd carried this weight of feeling second best, always in the shadow of Sarah's needs and wants. Laying everything out in the open, despite how dramatic it was, felt like shedding a heavy coat I'd been wearing for too long. Afterwards, I spent a lot of time just processing everything, going over conversations, thinking about the things said, and the raw emotions that had spilled out. It was a lot to digest. My friends were my rock during this time. They listened, offered shoulders to cry on, and more than a few glasses of wine were shared as I talked through my feelings. They helped me see that, despite how broken things seemed, I was finally making decisions that prioritized my own well-being. With the family drama somewhat behind me, I redirected my focus towards the wedding planning. This was supposed to be a happy time, and I was determined to reclaim that joy. The wedding planning became a therapeutic process. Each decision, from the flowers to the guest list, felt like a step towards a new beginning, a celebration of love that was all about the people who genuinely cared. The ceremony was everything I could have hoped for and more. It was intimate, with every guest someone who had shown true support through thick and thin. There were tears, but this time they were from laughter and heartfelt moments. The day was a beautiful affirmation that despite the rocky roads, there can be wonderful endings, or rather, new beginnings. The weeks following the wedding were a time of quiet introspection. I thought a lot about family, what it means, how it shapes us, and how sometimes the family we choose is more impactful than the one we're born into. I started journaling, something I hadn't done in years. It helped me unpack my thoughts and feelings, putting things down on paper to make sense of them. I also resumed therapy, diving deeper into understanding the dynamics of my family relationships, my reactions, and how I could build healthier boundaries. It was hard work, often uncomfortable, but incredibly necessary. My therapist helped me explore areas of my life that needed attention, not just the wounds left by family issues, but also my aspirations, fears, and dreams for the future. Reconciliation with my dad is still a work in progress. We've had a few conversations since the wedding, tentative steps towards understanding each other better. He's been trying, in his own way, to make amends. We're not back to normal. Maybe we never will be, but we're learning how to interact in this new reality of ours. As for Sarah, we haven't spoken since that day. Maybe one day we'll find a way to bridge the gap, but for now, I'm giving myself permission to step back and heal without feeling guilty or pressured to mend fences on anyone else's timeline. Life now is about moving forward with a clearer understanding of who I am and what I want. The wedding wasn't just a union with my partner, it was a celebration of coming into my own, surrounded by love and support. I'm excited about what the future holds, planning for new adventures with my spouse, perhaps starting a family of our own, and continuing to grow both personally and professionally. To everyone who's been reading along, your comments and support have been a source of strength and comfort. Sharing this journey has been a cathartic experience, helping me to not only process my experiences, but also to connect with others who might be facing their own challenges. Here's to the future. May it be filled with love, growth, and happiness. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey, for your wise words and kind thoughts. Here's to more updates, hopefully filled with good news and new adventures. Cheers to moving forward, whatever that may look like. Story 2. I live in a super expensive area with my husband where just getting by without a decent paycheck is a pipe dream. I've got a pretty solid job that helps us meet those big city costs. But the dynamics shifted drastically last year when my husband Jack switched careers. Jack had been stuck in a job he hated for years, one that paid okay but never made him happy. He always dreamed of breaking into graphic design, which he's passionate about. Finally, after years of late-night classes and building a portfolio, he landed a job in his dream field. We were thrilled. Well, at least until we saw the paycheck. It was half what he used to make, and in this industry, benefits were non-existent. Initially, we thought we could manage. We reshuffled our budget, cutting back where we could, but the strain started to show almost immediately. Things got real when 3 months into his new job, I discovered Jack had used up most of our emergency savings to buy new software and equipment for his freelancing gigs without telling me. This hit me hard because we had agreed to discuss any big spending given our new financial constraints. Feeling the pinch, I sat Jack down and laid it all out. I told him he might need to rethink this career switch, at least until we were more financially stable. He was devastated, understandably so since he'd finally found work he loved. But reality is harsh, and our bank statements don't lie. Jack proposed getting a part-time job to supplement his income, or even moving to a cheaper area to ease the financial pressure. The part-time job idea seemed like a drop in the ocean of our expenses, and moving away meant I'd face a killer commute and less family time, which was a deal-breaker for me. His next suggestion floored me. He casually mentioned that his parents could chip in financially to help us out. This was shocking because Jack has always been proud of his independence, and accepting money from his parents would be a last resort. Plus, it felt like a temporary bandage on a gaping wound, not a sustainable solution. As we navigated this financial minefield, personal tensions began to rise. Jack felt I wasn't supporting his dreams, while I felt increasingly like his financial caretaker rather than his partner. The situation escalated when, during a rare dinner out to try and reconnect amidst our growing stresses, Jack admitted he had been hiding more debts from me. Credit card bills racked up from networking events and pricey design workshops meant to boost his freelance career. This revelation was a breaking point. I felt betrayed. Trust, once the cornerstone of our relationship, was crumbling. We argued right there in the restaurant, voices raised, a spectacle for other diners. It was embarrassing and heartbreaking. In a desperate attempt to salvage his career without losing our financial security, Jack then made a drastic proposal. He suggested he could move back in with his parents for 6 months to a year. This would reduce our expenses and allow him to build up his freelance income without the pressure of immediate bills. But this meant living apart, a strain on any marriage, especially one already under stress. I was torn. On one hand, this could be the solution we needed to keep his dream alive without sinking ourselves into deeper financial trouble. On the other hand, the thought of living separately felt like a step backward in our relationship, a semi-separation that neither of us had signed up for. As we debated this, the emotional toll became evident. Jack, feeling isolated in his pursuit of a meaningful career, started to withdraw. Conversations about future plans turned into arguments about money and priorities. We were stuck, and every solution seemed to come with its own set of massive compromises. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to balance supporting the person I love with protecting our financial future. It's a tightrope walk between love and practicality, and every step feels fraught with potential for a fall. Now for the top comments. So he worked for years helping to pay off your student loans in a job he hated. And whilst he was slaving away at a job he didn't like, you were okay. But as soon as the boot was on the other foot, it's a problem. How many years did he work at a job that he hated while he carried the burden of the finance so you could pay off your student loans? You are the idiot. Hello. Well, the hypocrisy, right? He worked a job he hated and paid the majority of that cost because Princess Selfish had student loans. Now that he's doing something he likes and she's the main breadwinner, she sits him down and tells him he has to quit his dream job. She does all of this when they're not even struggling. I feel like I'm carrying him the way he carried your student loan riddle. But for years, what have you tried to do yourself? Just because you make more money and work long hours doesn't mean the onus is on him to pull his weight. It doesn't sound to me like he's being a lazy freeloader to me. He worked a job that made him miserable to help get your student loan debt paid off. Now he's finally happy. It sounds like you're the one who wants to live in an expensive way in order to keep your current job and be near your family. You want your husband to leave the job he loves and return to a job you hate so you can keep living in your fancy house. Get a divorce for his sake. Story 3. So, the stage was set for a fun night out with friends at a local brewery, a gathering spot that promised good food, great drinks, and some much-needed catching up. My friend Mike, who isn't the main organizer usually but took the reins this time, had made a reservation. My wife and I, eager for a relaxing evening, were the first to arrive. To our surprise, we found out that Mike had booked an outdoor table. Given the cooler evening and a general preference for a more cozy setting, I asked the staff if moving indoors was possible. They were super accommodating, setting up a table for us inside without any fuss. As other friends began to trickle in, everyone seemed pleased with the indoor setup, comfy chairs, nice ambiance, and no chilly breezes. We ordered our first round of drinks, laughing and chatting away, when Mike finally made his appearance. And here's where things started to get weird. Mike walked in, noticeably alone without his wife, and looked genuinely confused and a bit annoyed to find us all indoors. He immediately questioned the change, and upon learning of our collective decision, revealed that he'd brought his 3 dogs along, assuming we'd all be sitting outside at the pet-friendly table he'd reserved. The mood shifted instantly. Mike explained that not only had he planned for an outdoor dog-friendly evening, but another friend, Sarah, had also brought her dog, anticipating a similar setup. I tried to keep things light, apologizing for the misunderstanding and explaining my preference for the comfort of being indoors. However, Mike seemed increasingly upset, insisting the dogs were part of his plan for a laid-back night. Feeling a bit cornered and wanting to avoid a bigger issue, I suggested maybe we could compromise. That's when the unexpected happened. From the corner of my eye, I saw one of Mike's dogs, which he had tied up just outside the indoor seating area, start to get agitated and bark loudly. The barking caught the attention of another patron's dog, leading to a noisy commotion that had staff and guests turning their heads. Attempting to calm the situation, Mike stepped outside to settle his dogs down. Meanwhile, the staff, concerned about the disturbance, approached us to discuss the possibility of either fully moving outside as originally booked or ensuring the dogs could be calmed if we chose to stay indoors. Feeling the night slipping into chaos, some of our friends suggested shifting back outside to stick to the original plan and appease Mike. Half of the group started gathering their things to move outdoors, while the other half, myself included, preferred to stay inside. Just as we were sorting this out, another shocking twist. Sarah's dog slipped its leash and darted towards the brewery's kitchen, causing a minor uproar as staff rushed to intercept the dog before it could burst into the food prep area. This incident sparked a heated debate among our group. Some blamed Mike for not communicating his plans clearly, while others felt that those of us who opted to stay inside were being inflexible. Mike, now dealing with his unruly dogs and facing criticism, became defensive, arguing that the evening was ruined by our unwillingness to stick to his original plan. The night ended with the group split across 2 tables, one indoors and one out, with the jovial mood replaced by an awkward tension. Mike's frustration was palpable, and in a surprising move, he apologized for the misunderstanding but suggested that perhaps next time planning should be left to someone else. Feeling the weight of the night's failures, I couldn't help but reflect on how a simple evening out had spiraled into a series of unexpected and unfortunate events. Conversations were had, apologies made, but the sense that our group dynamic had shifted was undeniable. In the aftermath, Mike reached out individually to apologize for the chaos, admitting that his expectations for a casual dog-friendly evening were perhaps not well thought out given the group's diverse preferences. As for me, the incident served as a stark reminder of how crucial clear communication is, especially when plans involve more than just deciding on a time and place to meet. So, was I too hasty in my decision to change the venue without consulting everyone, especially Mike? Or was the night doomed from the start by a series of miscommunications and unmet expectations? Either way, it was a dinner that none of us would forget anytime soon. Am I the idiot? Edit. The person who made the reservation volunteered. He did not plan the outing. It was more like a group chat. Hey, anyone want to do this? People were interested. A place was chosen, and the guy who broke the dogs volunteered to make the reservation. Now for the top comments. You are the idiot simply for moving it indoors without asking anyone first light, not even one person. A couple of quick calls to ask what everyone preferred. If there was a specific reason for being outside would have been the better thing to do, rather than decide for everyone without consulting first. Then you saw inside pouting and wanting to be right, forcing everyone else to choose between what is now 2 groups and creating an awkward environment on what was supposed to be a nice evening out. Hope he kind of rubs me the wrong way. As he said, they sat inside to pounce, forcing a split in the group in the way they said some people went outside to be nice, as if no one could possibly prefer sitting outside with the other people and dogs. Just feels a little main character-ish. Well, I don't know. I love dogs. I own an enormous black lab that is the best dog. However, I don't feel the pressing need to take my dog everywhere I go. The dog is fine at home, enjoying the AC and shedding on my couch. Speaking of AC, I don't know about everyone else, but it has been insanely hot here. No way in heck I'd sit outside sweating my tatas off because some guy couldn't stand to be away from his dog for an hour. I think making reservations to specifically accommodate my own whims is idiot. And the guy who coordinated with another person about bringing his dog to, but couldn't be bothered to let the rest of the group know that it was going to be a dinner with the side of dog hair and sweat. He brought 3 dogs. Screw anyone who does that. Dogs, cats, babies, children, plus one's friends, relatives, in-laws, etc. Are uninvited guests unless agreed to in advance by the host or agreed to by the whole group. If it's a group event, regardless of who organizes the group event, the same applies to locations and events. So, no, the idiot. I hate when people impose their dogs on others like that. Story 4. So I nearly adult male dad left my mom when I was a young teen to be with his wife, the woman he was cheating on my mom with. That betrayal not only shattered our family, but also started a chain of events that made my teenage years pretty rocky. Despite his actions, my dad wanted to maintain a relationship with me, hoping I wouldn't think too badly of him. But honestly, that was a tall order. The custody arrangement was pretty standard. Judges around here stick to a strict 50-50th custody until the kid is old enough to voice a strong preference. My mom, who worked hard but never earned as much as my dad, struggled financially because the 50-50th custody arrangement meant no child support was required, even though there was a clear income disparity. A few years into this setup, as I neared adulthood, my dad, perhaps feeling some guilt or maybe just wanting to mend fences, approached me. He was desperate to prove he could still be a good father and offered to do anything to make up for his past mistakes. I saw an opportunity, not just for me but for my mom, who had been through so much. I told him if he really wanted to make things right, he could start by financially supporting my mom. Surprisingly, he agreed and started paying what we decided to call child support, which significantly eased my mom's financial burden and allowed her to pursue further education to better her career prospects. This arrangement seemed to work fine until the financial strain began to show at my dad's new household. He had remarried, and his new wife was not exactly thrilled about the money going to my mom. She especially didn't like it when financial pressures at home started to mount. My dad and his new wife had a baby, adding to their expenses, and her kids from a previous relationship were involved in numerous expensive activities. As if the financial drama wasn't enough, the emotional strain hit a breaking point recently at a family lunch that was supposed to be a simple catch-up. Unbeknownst to me, it turned into a showdown of familial obligations and loyalties. During the lunch, which already had an undertone of tension, my dad's wife dropped a bombshell. Due to their tightened budget, they had to cut back on her kids' activities. She bluntly told me that if my dad didn't have to support my mom, her kids wouldn't have to give up their extracurriculars. This confrontation escalated quickly, with accusations flying. She argued that my insistence on my dad supporting my mom was selfish, overlooking the needs of her children and their new baby. I retorted that her family's lifestyle adjustments weren't my concern, and my mom's well-being was non-negotiable, especially given the sacrifices she had made over the years. The argument took an even more shocking turn when she suggested that my mom should find another way to support herself, and that I was old enough to start contributing financially instead of relying on my dad. This suggestion was not only offensive, but also showed a clear disregard for the emotional and financial dynamics set by my dad's previous decisions. Her comment struck a nerve, and in the heat of the moment, I reminded her that her kids were not my responsibility, and that my dad had obligations to his first family, me and my mom, that didn't just disappear because he started a new one. The clash ended with her calling me ungrateful and cold-hearted, suggesting that I was ruining my chances of having any relationship with my half-sibling, the baby. Post-lunch, the fallout was massive. My dad tried to play peacemaker but ended up being pulled in 2 directions. He was stuck between his obligation to support my mom and his new family's demands. Meanwhile, the family dynamics continued to deteriorate, with resentments brewing on all sides. As things stand, the relationship between me and my dad's new family is more strained than ever. I'm left navigating these troubled waters, trying to uphold my principles while dealing with the backlash from all sides. It's a mess, and it's painful, but I'm determined to stand by my mom and ensure that her sacrifices are recognized, not penalized. Am I the idiot? Now for the top comments. What the heck did she expect sleeping with a married man? She can get a second job if money is a problem. Good to know your dad is only 50% sleazebag, not 100%. Regardless, it's absolutely not your problem. I hope your mom is doing well now. Every time she brings it up, reminded that it was her choice to sleep with a married man. She literally messed around and found out she's a goddamn hypocrite. I expect you to have empathy for me and mine. Yeah, like you had empathy for the man's wife and child whom you slept with? Absolutely not. The idea. Out of curiosity, how long will daddy continue paying until you're 18 or until mom graduates? For me, it's until a mom graduates is what I feel he owes. I can't technically make him pay that long though. Then I'll be in a much better place after dad screwed her over so badly. It's the least he can do. And the least I expect. The stepmom actually said her kids needed therapy to help them adjust to such big changes. This made me laugh because they cut 2 activities out of a long list. Story 5. So I'm 30 and my husband is 33. We've been married for 3 years and have a little baby boy. Now there's something you gotta know about my mother-in-law. She's super tough to deal with and doesn't really get the whole boundaries thing. A few years back, she was really out of line, calling me names and saying I wasn't good enough for her son, which obviously didn't sit well with me. I had a serious talk with my husband about it, and he actually stepped up and talked to her. Things got a bit better after that. She's still not my favorite person, but I've been trying to keep the peace. You know, choosing my battles wisely. This past weekend, there was a wedding we all went to, including my in-laws. Here's where it gets tricky. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law decided they didn't want to cough up cash for a hotel near the wedding venue because it was pricey. Instead, they asked my husband if they could crash at our place while we stayed at the wedding hotel. Now, my husband didn't even check with me before saying yes to them, which was kind of a bummer, but I figured I'd let it slide because my sister sometimes stays at our house too. Still, a heads up would have been nice. So, we head off to the wedding, and when we get back to our house the next day, there they were, just chilling in our place. They stayed in the guest bedroom, which I had spent ages cleaning and prepping for them. No small feat with a baby around. But here's the kicker. I found out that not only had my sister-in-law slept in my bed, but also, the next morning, my mother-in-law had joined her there. I was mortified. My bedroom was a mess. I mean, it's my private space, and I hadn't cleaned it up for guests because, well, who would think anyone would go in there? It felt like a huge invasion of privacy. They crossed a major line by snooping around and then actually sleeping in my bed. And honestly, those sheets were definitely not guest-ready. When I confronted my husband, hoping he'd back me up, he actually defended them. He said he'd told them it was okay to use our bed and thought I wouldn't mind. He even compared it to the time my sister and I had to share my bed because we ran out of sleeping space, which was totally different. This time, it felt like my personal space was just taken over without my consent. I was so upset, I couldn't even talk to him. And now he's mad at me, saying I embarrassed him in front of his family by making a big deal out of it. He doesn't get why I'm so upset about them using our bed and thinks I'm overreacting. So here I am feeling super disrespected in my own home. Not just by my in-laws, but now by my husband too. It's like, where do I even go from here? How do I make it clear that what happened was not okay and that my feelings are valid? It's a mess, and I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with all this drama while keeping the peace, or figuring out if that's even possible now. Now for the top comments. Yeah, a huge no to anyone sleeping in your bed without a conversation. And both sides agree. It's weird your family would still choose to sleep in your room knowing it wasn't prepared for a guest like the other room as well, but more, right? I guess they were given permission. The main issue comes down to your husband giving them the option without talking to you first. It's not okay for sure. Speak to him and place hard boundaries. If your husband will not step up and keep disrespecting your boundaries, maybe it's time to think about you stepping out or bringing this to him. I wouldn't want my child to be raised in an environment where their own father and paternal side disrespect the mother and don't see anything wrong while doing so. Not the issue yet, but get marriage counseling ASAP